How's it going, Chevette owners? I have some updates on Scooter. Nothing visually to see because, well, things haven't happened yet. It's still morning. But I have another car here that's sharing a bay with Scooter at the moment. And we're going to do a whole engine extraction, an engine reseal. We're going to go over key areas that are vacuum leak prone areas, stuff you need to be looking for when you're bringing one of these back from the dead. And we may be investigating why the power steering pump was removed from this car. So that and a few other things coming right up. Alright, so my buddy Jeff brought me his multi-door here. He was complaining of having some charging system issues, which ultimately resulted in an electrical fire because of some bad wiring. There's a lot of shortcuts in here, and I'm just gonna basically rip it all out and then clean it, and then we're gonna start fresh. Things like the bolts that they made into plugs when they removed the smog pump, I'm just going to go ahead and hack off flush and then give them a little tack weld. I have to convert a G-body alternator over to a Chevette alternator. So I got to change the faceplate out. And then there's a lot of oil leaks. So we're going to be taking this one all the way down, and all the way down to the head gasket as well. And then regasketing, repainting, shoving it back down in here. A couple hours I'll have this out and starting to tear down. I'll go ahead and put it on the table over here in pieces, and I'll have the engine stand right here. And while I'm cleaning all that up, getting things organized, this one is going to be getting the motor mounts finally done. I have the bottom plates roughly cut out. Last time I was able to try my plasma cutter at the old place, I got these cut, but that's all the farther I got. These and a couple of these, and it was bad because I was running on 110 instead of the 220, and my air compressor was giving me issues. It was a crapshoot. So finally going to cut the last couple pieces out for these, smooth these out where they need to be smoothed out, and then punch the holes in them. Because once I have these mount plates made, that engine can come back out, and I can finally build that engine and build that transmission, and then Scooter's going to rapidly get put together. Yes, assembled. Can't word today, guys. So we have a few other things I'm going to be checking out on this one. Jeff got one of those nifty new windshields installed in this. I don't know, I can't remember. I don't think he got it through Classic Industries. I think he may have ordered it through another company that installs glass. So clearly there's some stock of these getting around now, which is good. That's good. Everybody keep buying them up, because right now that's the way to start the aftermarket, is to start buying what there is. Man, everybody needs a windshield. Classic Industries, they currently have them for both generations, so something to look into. Charles Boos on the Facebook page and strangercars.com has window felts for 4 doors as well as 2 doors. These both will probably be seeing those in the future. This car is going to get torque tube looked over, and then I'm going to go over what likely is going to be a fairly rust-free floor. So, pretty cool. At any rate, I got a big old pile of parts. I got an engine to pull. And as soon as I've got this mess mostly out, we'll start going over, I'll grab the camera and I'll go over some of the no-nos that I'm finding. And then we'll move on to getting on the stand and regasketing. Alright, so I got a little bit ahead here. Went ahead and pulled the air conditioning stuff out because he said he didn't want that back in there. So I'm going to gut as much of the usable stuff out of here and shelve it as possible in case any of y'all need some more. Now let's address a couple things while I'm in here. Somebody was screwing around with wiring. Somebody thought they were a Sparky. Alright, here's the problem that probably resulted in a lot of these issues with the alternator and the fire. When he got this car, the temp light would come on even though it wasn't hot. And lo and behold, whoever did the removal of this stuff, probably to do a tune-up last, moved this from that stud right there, probably because they didn't want to route the plug wires around it, that holds the wire right here out of the way, up here, which put it at a really stressed angle. And then the wiring harness, of course, was pulled over this way, so it pulled the plug. And look what it did. It grounded itself out, which is what kicked the light on. Okay, so there's problem number one solved. And then over here, same deal. Man, if you guys are going to splice into wires, please don't do this. And if you have to, don't leave the ends, because you're going to end up with a fire. That's 12 volts right there on that wire. That's one of the brown wires that carries a full 12 volts. Things like that. And like this here, this is, I'm trying to remember what this goes to. But it is a, this is a pink wire? It is, it's a pink wire. There's another 12 volt wire with an open terminal end on it. So, lots and lots of problems under here wiring wise that could have been easily fixed. Now mind you, Jeff didn't do this, and I'm allegedly the previous owner may or may not have, but somebody did. And let's move on to the repair for the blower motor. This is kind of a, if you have to do this, put a fuse in the line. But this goes into a toggle switch inside somewhere, and it ran across here and over to here to bypass the plug, the purple wire right here. And as I was telling Jeff, the reason they probably did that was because either A, the almost impossible to kill relay for this on the firewall has a short in the wiring harness, or the commonly burned up plug right here where the red wire runs through here probably has a burned up terminal, which I'll check here in a second. But as I was pointing it out last night, this came to my attention. There's a big bare spot in the wire that runs over to power the relay, or actually not to power the relay, but to come out of here to power the blower motor. So this was also touching ground. So odds are they grounded it out below the fuse, and it was probably giving them all kinds of problems because they were shorted out right there, and so they bypassed it with the big green wire. Now I will say they at least used the right gauge, but boy, but we're gonna fix it, and it'll all be right when it comes out of here and goes back in. So I'm going to continue to work on this. I drained the radiator out. After I closed the drain and it was done draining, I moved the pan over to this side and then removed the lower hose because that always contains more coolant. Then I moved the coolant bucket out, and I got my oil bucket out because being an automatic, it was going to leak a little bit of transmission fluid. So that's that. Transmission lines have a clip on the oil pan down there I have to remove. I have to remove the exhaust, and then I got to start doing wiring under here, which really isn't a whole lot. It looks like a spaghetti mess right here, but I'm really almost 30 minutes away from having this out. Mostly what's going to stop me is bell housing and torque converter bolts. So I'm going to get back on it and get a little further, and we'll get back on the camera when I find some more fun stuff, or I need to point something else out while I'm doing this. Alright, educational moment. Alright, as I'm taking this exhaust manifold loose, there has been not only missing hardware, but 3 different types of hardware. And while hardware is better than no hardware, the proper hardware goes a long way. There's a reason why there's a bolt specifically for the exhaust manifold. That is this one right here, and it has a shoulder where there are no threads. And that is for the expansion and contraction of the exhaust manifold. And that is so it's not expanding and contracting on the threads of the bolt, which will ultimately pop the head of the bolt off if you use something like this. Now you also notice this has a floating washer, whereas the exhaust manifold has a shouldered head. And that's because you don't want the washer underneath the exhaust manifold's bolt moving around. Cast iron, exhaust manifold, cast iron, cylinder head, they're all going to expand and contract at the same rate. So in theory, as long as the threads aren't damaged because the manifold's trying to ride back and forth on it, this fastener should never fail. This fastener, on the other hand, even though it is the same thread pitch, the same length, and does the same job, it has a loose washer and it's threaded all the way up. And the reason for that is it goes into a slightly larger hole on the intake manifold, which is aluminum and likes having the loose washer on the bottom of the bolt. Now I know there's some science behind this and I can't remember exactly what it is, and forgive me for forgetting some things because God, I remember way too many things as it is. But anyway, there's a reason why the fasteners are the way they are. The aluminum intake manifold gets these bolts, the exhaust manifold gets these bolts, and neither one of them gets one of these bolts. This goes in the trash. Alright, well, I'm getting Jeff's engine tore down. So I'm getting ready to soak a bunch of parts, and while everything is soaking, I'm going to be fabricating the mounts and things for this. So in the meantime, I'm tearing things down, kind of getting an evaluation of what's going on. And it's had some repairs. It's full of Velcro gaskets, so it's definitely been apart. And everything in the cylinder head down here looked great. Really, for the most part, this little 110 head doesn't look bad. But I haven't gotten on the combustion chamber side yet, and I'm afraid to because I just ran into this. Now, some of you probably already noticed exactly what's going on with this picture and why I'm concerned. However, for those that are not in the know, we want our pistons to look like this. Nice and uniform. No pitting, no cracks. Amazingly enough, not even a bunch of carbon buildup. Mostly because I assume the head gasket was probably leaking between these two cylinders before. Yeah, however, then we moved to cylinder 1. And I thought that was just carbon buildup, and some of it may still be, but there's definitely something going on right here. There's even a deformation of the upper ringland on this that I can visually see. It's just not round anymore. Now it doesn't smoke, doesn't burn oil. And then we get cylinder 4. So I'm going to clean the tops of 1 and 4 up, and then I'm going to flip that cylinder head over, and then we'll see what we have actually going on here. At the very least, this thing ran good. I would not be afraid to slam 2 stock pistons back in this thing and send it on its way, as long as the deck surface is straight, flat. And one thing to keep in mind, we don't know how long this thing actually sat. Clearly, there was some water corrosion or some cooling system corrosion going on. It was picking away at even the brand new Velcro gasket. So no hot spots in the fire rings anywhere, but it was definitely working its way through the steel shim material here. And that can be just from sitting with junk cooling in it for a long period of time, which is why I say when these things sit, it's probably not a bad idea to go ahead and open them up and at least re-gasket them. Oh yeah. So yeah, there's been a few hot spots in it. As a matter of fact, look across the middle of this head gasket, all the way across. Something tells me this deck surface isn't flat. Something else also tells me that that cylinder head probably isn't flat, so I don't know. I'm going to do a little more investigating here, and then I'm going to discuss with Jeff what he wants to do, and maybe one of those engines over there gets put together for this car. Crossing my fingers. Alright, where did we leave off? Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there. Yeah, that's where we left off. So, anyway, that's all junk. That's the reason why it was not only a paint shelf for painting the cylinder head, but, well, I don't know, also why I was polishing the cam cover. Well, not polishing it, but I was cleaning it, but it ended up kind of cool looking, so it's going to stay that way. But at any rate, this is an engine I had over in the corner. The short block is technically really super high mileage, although it's had rings and bearings. Oil pump was well, I blueprinted the oil pump on this one, so it's pretty tight tolerance. It ran great. Put up with a lot of abuse. As a matter of fact, this car, or this engine, went into the race car in an emergency one year when we lost a wrist pin that destroyed the engine. And that 350,000 mile engine went and won the season for us. Came home and I went back on the stand for inspection and everything was kosher, so it sat there waiting for another car to go in, and it's found its way. So I'm in the process of getting ready to put this engine together for Jeff. This was a low mileage swirl port head I had sitting over there on the shelf, and it had, somebody had busted a tap off in it real deep, and there was no getting it out of there, so I welded it with the TIG, and there's now a stud in that hole. This is my new best friend. We're gonna have a lot of fun together. I love the TIG machine. At any rate, I have got to get the cylinder head torqued down on this, so I got to get the cam cover up on there. I just got done putting a new seal in the cam cover. I'm getting ready to lube the cam tunnel a little bit with just some motor oil, because I'm going to prime this engine before it turns once it's assembled. So I'll make sure I have actual oil pressure through the cam and through the journals. But for assembly, just a little light motor oil, show it through. What I'm getting ready to do right now is this surface right here. Okay, and I've addressed this in a few other videos, and I'm going to address it every time I have an engine open for you guys. The cam carrier does not get a gasket. The cam carrier does not get RTV. The cam carrier gets no silicone sealant whatsoever. And the reason for that is because the camshaft is a high pressure oiled system running through it. And what will happen is you'll get RTV, which I found in this one, almost intruding into this area here when they squished it together, because that's what they did. Not only does it get up in the oil hole and wreak havoc, because it'll get up in the cam journals, and then once it's in the cam, it's impossible to get it out. It'll also seep out through the edges, and a lot of people just slam these things together and fire them up, and that RTV is not set up quite 100% most of the time, and you'll end up with it all over the engine. Or the little pieces will break off later and end up in the pickup tube for the oil pump. So, no bueno. Don't do that. The proper way to do this is either rubbing alcohol on a lint-free rag or alcohol prep pads, and you clean the surface until you can't get it. You can't get any more gray off on your rag. And then, same deal here. You will run over this surface as much as you possibly can until you get all the crap off of it. And then you apply a very thin bead of anaerobic sealant around this. And when you get over here, you're going to avoid going around that oil hole. There's no reason for that. Just go past it on the rail. That anaerobic sealant is designed that once everything is squished together, under pressure it cures. And so it has to have a perfectly prepped surface. And so if you don't have a primer for it, the next best thing is an alcohol clean surface, because that's the only thing that keeps oil from seeping out of the inside of the engine to the outside of the engine through that little area right there. When I get ready to lay that down, I'll pick up the camera again and get back to that. But in the meantime, I'm gonna clean up. I got an oil pan I gotta pull off of here yet, because I'm gonna put a new rear main seal in this. I'm also gonna put a new timing seal in or a timing cover seal in the front, or the crank seal in the front rather. This is also getting the one-piece crank gear from that engine, because it's a superior crank gear over the early two-piece. So a few things getting ready to swap over. I got the water pump and the intake ready to go. Once everything's together and I have all the tin on it, then I'll shoot the whole engine in the clear to seal it, and then it'll be ready to go in the car. So back on it for now. All right. And again, all its job is to fill in the imperfections between the machine surfaces. So it's not very much. As a matter of fact, I've got too much on here in places, because it's going to go out both sides. That's why you don't want to use RTV and things. Plus this gives you more time to set it up, because it doesn't cure until it's got pressure on it. It'll get tacky. But that's it. So now I'm going to take the clean cam carrier. You just line it up with its dowels and seat it. So now I'm going to put a little bit of light oil on the head bolts, just a little tiny bit of oil on the head bolts and under the washers, and then I'm going to run them in. Alright, well, I just finished up for the evening. This engine actually needed a little bit of work before it was ready to go, but it's now got a couple new bearings in the bottom that needed to be replaced as a result of some racing that me and Michael did with this engine, and all the problems are corrected. So typical stuff I find after we've run these engines hard, but this one should be good for a long time now. And I'm sending it out looking as good as I can possibly make it, because of the history this engine's got. Obviously, I'm hoping that if engine swap comes up in this car at some point, we might end up with it back. But if not, I'm saying farewell to my 350,000 mile engine, save for one light rebuild. It's been a good engine, and we're gonna see, hopefully we're gonna see a little bit more of it, but otherwise it's gonna make somebody, well, it's gonna make Jeff a good daily driver engine, and it's gonna look good doing it. So I got a little bit more to do. I have the carburetor to straighten around in the morning. I have a water pump, distributor, and fuel pump to put on it, as well as changing the temperature sensor and adding the oil pressure sender and the starter, and then this can slam down in the car. After it's in the car, I'll put the exhaust manifold and the alternator on it, and then sort the power steering brackets and things out. So a little bit more on that, and then as promised, the mounts for this, because man, I am going to be so happy to start assembling that engine as well. You have no idea. I'm so glad this thing's just about to be on its wheels. Alright, well, as you can see, Jeff's car is outside at the moment. And I've got scooter tore apart in here because I needed to get some things caught up on scooter before Jeff's car left. So I went ahead and got the block all cleaned up. It's been honed and it's ready to be assembled now. The heads have been ready to go, but the block needed to be cleaned and one final go through after the quick hone. And then I've got the transmission to tear down, clean up, and then put the reluctor wheel in for the speed sensor, and then all that as an assembly can go in his car here real soon. But I have Jeff sitting outside of that door right now, and in about an hour I'm getting ready to, because it's, well, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. In about an hour, I'm getting ready to do my errands for the morning and then bring it in here. But I have to clean, so I'm gonna get this mess cleaned up here when I get back. Pull Jeff's in, finish it up, and then next video we're gonna be going hardcore on this one. And then I've got one more car coming. And just like that, it's back in the garage. I'm gonna catch you up here real quick. I have a upcoming video on that, as you know. This is in. I did have it temporarily set up in here, and it has run once, so now I'm just gonna go over things. Real quick, I have to hook up vacuum lines, I have to straighten out the electrical, and then I have to bolt the distributor in the proper place. Fuel pump rod, fuel pump, light it off. Carb's done. I'll be going through a carb video here real soon. Put that one right there. But in the meantime, I'm gonna finish this up real quick. That way I can get you guys on the camera seeing this thing start for the first time in the car. And then I'm gonna go over the last little bits of the vacuum stuff that I address why I'm in here, and fix the HVAC stuff and his gas gauge, and then this thing is going home. As far as I'm understanding, as much as he likes these wheels, he's got a new set of really killer looking rollers to put on it when it gets home too. So those of you on the Chevette owners page, be soon, you'll be checking that out here real soon. So I'm gonna get on this. I'll be right back. I'll have you on the stand, and then we'll be firing it up. Alright, so there's some temporary stuff going on here. I've got all the vacuum stuff kind of capped at the moment. What's needed to be routed is routed, but the extra stuff is currently capped, and the coil's just sitting here. So it should be close. I set it in, I set the distributor in with the balancer sitting somewhere around 10 degrees before top dead, and shot for just right about power 1. So we're gonna be close. It should try. It should try. So carb's primed. Give it a couple. All right, got a pump shot. That's pretty damn close. Awesome. Alright, well, I have transmission cooling lines to tighten up because they are leaking right now. I have to adjust on the carburetor a little bit. Otherwise I think everything is cool. So alright, let me get some things cleaned up here, and then I'll get you guys back on the camera when I'm getting ready to roll this thing out the door. Alright, so it's all done. All the HVAC stuff is now fixed. There was a choke cable that was operating all of that because the temperature side, because the temperature lever was broken and the cable was missing. It now has a cable and the temperature works. The fan that was bypassed with the green wires across, there's now a proper fuse in the fuse box. The fan switch is now hooked up, so when the key is turned on, And it's an AC car, so the relay's on a delay. It takes just a second for it to kick on and go. But that's all done. While I had that apart, I made sure that the vacuum switch, the top side switch, was not leaking any vacuum while the engine was running, because that can be a secret vacuum leak. One of those vacuum leaks I was talking about. The other thing is, in an air-conditioned car, even when you are doing away with the air conditioning, in order for the blend doors to operate properly, this still needs to have vacuum going to it. And this line right here goes into the wiring harness. So you want to make sure that that has no leaks. You want to make sure that the dash has no leaks. And you want to make sure that has full vacuum at all times. If you have an automatic and it's an 82 up car, there's a lockup converter switch over here underneath this cover that needs also full vacuum. And then pretty much just everything on the engine just needs to be vacuum free before you tune them, and they're golden. So that's really the big things vacuum wise you got to worry about. Aside from that, setting the timing properly and setting the carburetor properly is paramount for things like this. And it doesn't matter what temperature it is, it should always start that way. Generally though, when it's really, really cold, when you get down below 32 degrees, one, maybe two full pumps of the gas pedal will give you a little shot of fuel. It'll close the choke. It'll still pop right off, but it'll come up on its fast idle as well. And then once it comes up to temperature, that fast idle will drop and it'll run just like this. The last thing I have to do is do an alignment on this thing and give it a road test tomorrow, and it can go home. And then it's all day, every day on this one. So I will, I think tomorrow is when we're going to start doing the scooter build, and look for that to be probably as of this weekend. We're going to be doing daily videos. I've had so many requests so far for me to do this car step by step. So probably going to start off the first video with all of the oiling mods for that Buick, and then we'll go from there until it's done. My goal is to maybe not have it on the road by the first of the year, but at least where I can maybe turn the key and hear it light off, because then that's one step closer to breaking it in and driving it around. In the meantime, I'm going to let this thing warm up a little bit, and I'm going to take it for a real quick spin around the block. You guys keep that shiny side up.